Welcome, everyone, to episode 17 of the Total Relationship Podcast. I'm Kim Kokenauer, COO and CCO at Form Wealth Advisors, joined by my co-host, Tyson Ray, CEO of Form Wealth Advisors. Last time we talked about removing performance from your annual reviews, and today we're actually going to double down on that because it's really a sticking point for a lot of advisors. There's a million reasons why you think this can't work for your practice, and we're here to help you see it a different way. We're going to try and keep you on that north compass point of the total relationship that you can have with your clients. So we're going to jump into why it's important to shift your perspective and how to get past your client bias, and then your team's objections for changing up your process. So let's get into it. Tyson, I feel like the annual review is a low threshold of entry to the total relationship. What do you think? Is that not that easy?
I think it's just a continuation of the one of the mistakes in the business I found, which caused us to make this switch, is our boarding process for new clients got better. We started asking better questions. We started learning how to basically bridge these relationships. Mm-hmm. And there was a point in time where all of a sudden I realized, like, our newest clients were getting our best and our existing clients were getting what they got. Mm-hmm. And it was in the 2000s that we basically, shut down the practice for about 6 months, retooled, and went and reintroduced ourselves to all of our clients to give them and explain to them, we're going to take you through the process that we now have that we think is a better fit for you. And we kind of level set it. So now everybody's getting the same experience and everybody's getting our best, which is what they want. And quite frankly, what they expect. Mm-hmm. And so in absorbing that, it was a way of not piecemealing it. It was a way of not creating, it was, if we were catching this information that was coming in for the new client, I want to be catching that information for the existing client.
Yeah. And so that's kind of a perspective of, what's in it for the advisor. Like, you can actually level set your practice. You can actually offer them the opportunity to start over instead of thinking you can't make those kinds of changes. And an easy way to start, for example, is at the annual review. Everyone should have an annual review throughout the year. It's an easy way to start. You don't have to throw everything up on its head, but it's a simple way for the advisors to start shifting their perspective.
Mm-hmm. It also makes it digestible, right? This isn't like, it looks like it's this really big deal, but all of a sudden, if you're having the same meetings you were having, and quite frankly, you have to have, okay, as I have those over the course of this next year, I'm going to be able to implement this, and that will then give me traction. That will then start allowing me to document it in such a way that the team can now see it, so they can benefit for when they're having the follow-up or the other interactions. They can see what this relational data is and what matters. As they pick up on changes through conversations with the clients, that gets recorded so that I can see it. And the clients feel like they're being heard and we're addressing what ultimately matters, which often isn't how we did in the past that these annual reviews have been focused on.
Yeah. So a personal objection an advisor might have is that they might not be in charge of the meeting the same way that they used to be, and kind of getting past the leading with the performance part. How can you encourage them that it's actually not a matter of being in charge or holding the most floor space with their voice? That's an important shift that they should probably be making.
Yeah, I think every firm wants to serve their, they all sound the same at the very least from a marketing or website standpoint. Every firm wants to take care of their clients or do what's in the best interest of their clients. And so if there is some folks in senior management that think that is doing this same report every meeting for an annual review, as I said in the previous podcast, okay, well, take that report and go through the questions we're talking about to have that relational interaction with the client. And in the end, ask the client, do you want me to go through this report? Do you want me to give it to you? Do you want me to just throw it out for you? What would you like me to do with this? I'm not saying individuals need to run rogue against their team, but I'm saying there's a both and to this. And it is, I think the advisors that seek to have this total relationship and capture it in such a way that it can be lived out with other associates and lived out in the next meeting with that client. You may over time help those that maybe make some decisions at a team level, or some of those that have been doing it for a long way, realize, oh, wait, there's something to this.
Mm-hmm. And I'll mention what we did previously. We do offer, is to kind of help you prep for this shift maybe in your annual reviews, is if you go to totalrelationship.com/annual review, you'll be able to get a prep checklist that'll allow you to kind of start reframing some of those questions, reframing some of the things you can use to prepare ahead of time. And Tyson, really quick though, but you're thinking, does that actually help them avoid the step of having to teach their team this? Like, how can you bring them into it instead of feeling like a separate teaching time? Because I know everyone's running out of time. And the one resource no one has any more of than anyone else. Like, so speak to the objection of, I don't have time to teach this to my team.
I don't know if you need to teach it to your team first as much as you need to make a decision as an individual how you're going to interact with the people that you're trying to be responsible for. And I think a lot of it is leading by example. So then it's doing so other people can see what you're doing. And if anything, it ends up being contagious. Or you might start realizing, or the team might start realizing, that you have relationships with some of these clients, and there's laughter in the annual reviews, and there's interaction in these annual reviews that maybe some of these other associates aren't experiencing, that it can become a contagious thing.
Yeah. As they say in parenting, more is caught than taught. And so I think by proximity, you can teach a lot to your team and just kind of show them and lead by example. And so I think another objection advisors might think of is they might actually get something pushback from their clients. What are your thoughts on client-based objections and how advisors can handle them? Like, clients might not want to get that personal.
People object to information that you give them, right? So, when we sit down and explain to clients that in the end, the most important things are the people that you love and care about. And within wealth comes from parents and often passes. You got to leave it to somebody, and understanding how you feel about those people have a lot to do with what that plan needs to be. So there's your family in the total relationship, right? There's some estate planning in the total relationship. Talking about, hey, second topic that, after that we talk about is, how are you? Like, any changes to your health, anything you're worried about, anything we need to know. Because, unfortunately everybody dies. And somewhere along the line, when you get to that point, you have some diminished capacities of knowing what those are, or you have a scare. Like, it just goes back to, someone gets diagnosed with stage 4 cancer in their early 60s. That wasn't part of the plan. And here I'm talking about a performance report, and they're thinking about the diagnosis they got. And so, again, asking open-ended questions and letting clients speak into that. And you may not get everything all at once, and you don't have to, but that's part of what the relationship is. I think that's easy. I think what the leaders of teams need to realize is, or the senior advisor needs to realize is that's easier to teach than how to explain a performance report. Mm-hmm. And the objections that can come from that, of why that benchmark, or why that index, or why did I underperform, or why did I, do I need to be worried about? You're drawing attention to things that's like, hey, how's your family? The people you love and care about, everybody good? Any changes? How's your health? Any changes? Any updates on that prognosis? Or, are you said you wanted to exercise more. Are you still doing those workout classes and those types of things? How's the house, right? Home improvement still staying there? We still looking to downsize? Like, again, it just leads itself into the conversation. How's the car? How many miles have gone, the little bugger? Has it died yet? We're going to get another one. Those are all just really easy. It seems overwhelming until you just get into it, because it just becomes a very natural conversation where you're asking an open-ended question and just listening, and then leading them a little deeper into whatever their response is, to understand what do they feel about this, and how does it affect their wealth.
So, and to shift the perspective, if their clients only want to hear about performance, I know one of the things we always talk about, we talked about last time with Nick Murray, what's the question behind the question? What is kind of that objection if the client's only focused on performance, or only wants the advisor to focus on performance? What's kind of that, what do you think would be that root question that they're really struggling with?
Well, I think in the end, they want to know they're doing well, or they're doing what they need to be doing. And I've had, a common theme, if there was one when it becomes performance, is that some clients want to take and compare themselves to the market because that's what is produced every day, which we just, again, the advisors know, okay, well, that's an S&P 500 index, right? You can't actually invest in it, but there are other investments that mirror it. And I remember a situation once where the client kept wanting to be upset because his account wasn't doing what the index did. And I said, well, I could fix that. I can just put everything in the index. Now you have everything in one spot, and it'll bounce around a little bit more than it does. But I went back to, you said you didn't want to leave anything to the kids. You want to spend it all and enjoy it. So why aren't we taking money out that you did make and buy that RV you've always wanted, or go do that vacation? Or are you just going to be upset for the rest of your life because you didn't make more money? Like, there's a disconnect there. Help me understand it.
Yeah.
I think sometimes people just, compared to what? And every day, every minute of every day, every TV channel you can turn on, and what's the market doing? Mm-hmm. What are these investments doing? And it draws people to make these comparisons. And I think part of my job as an advisor is to disconnect their comparison from some market, make money quick, win the lottery, make more for more's sake, and tie them back to, what do you want to do with all this? When you look back in your life, what are things you want to make sure you do that you don't regret, or how do you want to take as this, I remember a client, they crossed a threshold of a certain number of millions. And I said, his response was, the next goal was to get to the next million. And I said, well, that's not any fun. That's just more money. I would rather see you spend that money on something you enjoy, because now you have more and you want to feel like you can do something with those profits. If we just leave them in there, they're going to fluctuate and you get to be frustrated about that. And we work together for him to realize, hey, it's okay to take now this extra and maybe get that lake house that you wanted, or do that upgrade, or give it away. I've had some clients give their biggest checks to charity when we just said, hey, let's just draw a line in the sand, and whatever this thing grows next year, let's talk about giving that away, because that's now extra. But you can reshift. I think the mistake too many advisors make is they take the question at face value and then get defensive or get into the weeds about why this didn't perform to that. And it's all of a sudden it's performance to us is the life they're living, not what the portfolio did last month or last year.
Yeah. Well, and again, a famous saying is, comparison is the thief of joy. If you are going to constantly be putting yourself up against the market instead of actually evaluating, are you accomplishing the milestones you wanted to with the income you saved or the income you earned, it's a totally different perspective shift. And so the last kind of component of making the shift in your practice is really the objections your team might have when looking to make a process change. Now, their workload's already probably pretty high. Everyone's trying to work as lean as possible. And the thing is, like, you already want us to put something new on our plate. How has that been approached, or how have you discussed that with teams? Because I've got a couple of things on our team that I could share, but I'd love to hear your take.
Yeah, I think what the total relationship's really going to do is quickly hone in on whose gifts and talents are people and feelings, and whose gifts and talents are facts and figures, or facts and portfolios. Because there's a front of the house aspect that I've sought to hire people into roles that they care more about these relational questions. They care about more what the dog's name is, right, than I do. But there are a few clients I have, they like their pets more than they like their kids, or they don't have kids and their pets are everything to them. Different from what I've realized is that if you are a facts and figures person and you don't have a lot of empathy or connect with people relationally, and that's fine, everybody's got gifts and talents and skills, that's going to be a little bit of pushback on the team. I think sometimes associates hire the economist out of college or the finance degree or these minds that are great for Excel spreadsheets and these performance numbers and how do they get calculated and how they get defined. Well, that's not going to be the person that's going to be driving the total relationship. That's just not their skill set. And not that they can't be used, but it helped me start realizing the who's I needed to hire into the team to do the how this total relationship gets played out. And some of the people that don't have those strengths can actually get moved into skills to help monitor the data and monitor some of the factual things that go on in the team and support those that are client facing. And there's a great balance to that. But I think a lot of the pushback has more to do with the wrong person in the wrong seat than it does to do with, I think naturally this is happening. I think most advisors that built these practices did so through relationships. They may in the end have been selling a product or earning a commission or building a portfolio. But as that has evolved, as it is in this day and age, most I find advisors of the practices we've acquired built relationships. They had some of this data in these conversations, whether they captured it or not is a whole other matter, whether anybody else on the team knew that was a whole other matter, whether they remembered a year later when they're having the review again, it's a whole other matter. And all we're realizing is it's that simple to then capture, share, and let other people speak into the relational aspect that keeps the client a client in the first place, having absolutely nothing to do with the portfolios.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things that I've used when it comes to hiring people on the team is when we're even looking as early as an intern. It's like, I'm looking for someone who's had a job. I'm looking for someone who's had some service experience. Now, maybe they didn't have a job in high school, but they did some volunteer work. They have a little bit of that service-minded approach and caring for someone else or volunteering and doing something for someone else. And that to me shows that they can have some of that relational side to them instead of bringing someone in who's they've not had that desire to connect with people in that way or serve in another way. And so that might be a quick tip if you're looking to bring additional people onto your team or something to look for to make that a little bit easier if you're looking to look in the more relational lane for your next hire.
Yeah, I also think for the advisor that built their practice on the portfolio and the managing the money, and maybe you're really good at it and you did it well. I'm not downplaying that. And I'm not saying you can't point that out to the client, but what I am saying is I think the complement to that is hiring the associate that can build the relationship and bridge the emotional gap of what that money is for to understand how that money should be coming out. Because I think one of the problems is like if you're really good at managing money and you're really good at growing people's portfolios and you're that facts side of things, by continuing to hammer out how well it's going, what you're communicating to the client is they can't have any of it because they need to leave it in there to make more money. And in the end, they're going to regret that because they didn't use it for what it was for, which was at some point in their life to turn those units of an investment back into dollars that they can spend, give, enjoy, and have memories for. Because I've never been to a funeral where someone was like, they were so glad they ended up having so much money. Most of the funerals were celebrating the life this person lived, where they, in some aspects, took some of that money and invested it in their life and loved ones and left a legacy of memories and experiences that weren't dollars on a piece of paper or weren't black ink on white paper of a portfolio.
Yeah. I recently had a funeral that I had attended, and most of the people who were there were family. And the people that were invested in by this wonderful man. And so it's just who he cared for, who he took care of, who he showed up for. And a lot of that came in a lot of different ways. And you're right. At the end of the day, it's not about the money that's in the bank account. It's the life that you build and those that are around you to do that with. And so one other thing I want to circle back though to on the team piece is a lot of advisors might be in a seat where they're working for a visionary. They might not own their practice, and they kind of want to implement something, or they work for a visionary who's constantly implementing new things, but nothing is ever fully implemented. I think it was important that you highlighted earlier that you don't have to be the person in charge to start making some of these changes. You can take the reins, and how you talk to your clients, it can be the foundational place where you make the change. So if you've got the visionary who's constantly trying to implement lots of other ideas, how can you complement that with deepening your relationships without getting stuck in all the other ideas that are spinning out?
Yeah, I think it goes back to, I want every person on my team or every person hearing this that's on a team to understand what they can control. And so if you're working for somebody that they're just spinning out one new idea after another and you have to implement that idea, okay, in the process, can you implement and ask some of these open-ended questions, which again, I will reiterate, this is most meetings start with some type of icebreaker, some type of relational question, some type of just trying to like get a feel for where each other are at emotionally. And I'm saying focus on that because that's controllable. And I've had examples within our team of receptionists that started asking these questions and started getting to know the clients that over the years ended up being able to become registered and being now sitting in the one doing the review meeting, because the one that can make that client's life better will be the one that will ultimately have more say over how that client is, who that client's interacting with. The more you connect with the client, no matter whether you own the client, don't own the client, are senior management of the firm, not senior management of the firm, if those clients connect with you over time, you will have more say in how to interact with those clients to make their life better while still being submissive to the authorities over you. I'm not saying go rogue.
Yeah.
But what you may do is if they start realizing how much those relationships are connecting to you, they might start picking up on why that is. And I think I did it as a junior advisor. As I look back on it, I didn't realize I was doing it. But I was the junior advisor for 5 years with the stockbroker guy who all he wanted to do was talk about the stocks. And I came in and started asking about the people that they love and their estate planning, ended up gathering other assets that the stock advice. Like I would tell the client, don't worry, we won't tell him. So that way he doesn't have to go into a stock. Like you can own something else. That's fine. And helped build the relationships deeper and wider than my senior advisor was able to do. And because the clients were happy, right? And because I wasn't telling the senior advisor they're wrong or they have to do it a certain way, I was still following their direction. But because I was interacting with the clients and the clients' feedback to the senior advisor was they liked the interaction that we had, they felt comfortable, they felt heard, didn't get me in trouble. And in the end, I was able to buy the firm.
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways that you can go about it while respecting the position that you hold right now. Because when you're keeping the client's best interest at heart, you're really setting up the firm and the client for success, regardless of the seat that you sit in. So I think it's important that you take the time to evaluate where you're at. If you have the time to shift your perspective, you do have time to shift your perspective on how you approach annual reviews and deepening your client relationships. There's always going to be objections. There's always going to be reasons why it doesn't work. Form at one point, like Tyson said, stopped their practice and reevaluated everything. You might not be able to do that, but every day you get a chance to try again and start over. And we're trying to help give you some tools to make that possible. So please head over and download the prep checklist at totalrelationship.com/annual review to help you get started. So Tyson, as we wrap up this episode, what words of wisdom would you leave the listeners with today?
Yeah, I would just think that in this day and age that we're now, years into this whole social media platform and texting and Instagram and all these different things, that it's just the relationship has lost its feeling and become text. And in financial services, these performance reports, they can go anywhere and get that. They can go do that themselves and pull performance reports down. And what I didn't realize until we got into this and wrote the book is that which is the most basic aspect of having a business, which is having relationships with your customers, or having relationships with your clients, is a value add in this day and age. Like the fact that on an annual basis, we're asking them how they're doing, how they feel, what about their health, what do they want in life, how do they care about their kids or their parents or their loved ones. They don't, and it's often face to face. They're not getting those, or even just over the phone, which some of these people aren't communicating with their loved ones over their phone anymore. I can't get my kids to call me back. I got to send them a text, right? The scarcity of these types of interactions are becoming less and less for people, especially as they get older. And all of a sudden, here is a way of going about it to basically fill a void that the world has created that adds value in a way that no one else can do. And it's not complicated. This isn't hard. It's just realizing how do you capture it so you can remember it in the future, and how can you do it consistently, and how do you allow yourself to enjoy that for yourself too? Because, hey, I walk out of here and I got the same issues everybody else has, which is all this all the social relationships we've had for our whole lives are now a piece of technology. And I'm saying in the financial services practice, if you want to remove the technology and connect with the person, you're going to build a practice that adds value and creates a way of making people's lives better that most financial services advisors aren't doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to episode 17 of the Total Relationship Podcast. If you haven't already, click follow and subscribe to be the first to know when new episodes are available. New episodes are available every other Tuesday. And then check out the description for the links and free resources to connect with Tyson and myself on LinkedIn. And be sure to follow us over on the Total Relationship page on LinkedIn to join the community of like-minded advisors. Until next time.